Yo, and we're live. All right, today we're going to be reacting to an article by Peter Norvig. Before we load that up, let's go ahead and put on some music, toss it in Discord, and we are good to go. I'll put up a pinned comment too. Make sure that is shuffled. All right, what's up, Daniel? Let me go and type it in live chat. Stay, keep the conversation on topic today. What's up, Smakel? Keep the conversation on topic today. Regards to questions. Save your question here. On topic today, save your web dev / career questions. What's up, Billy? All right, save your web dev career questions for tomorrow's Q&A. What's up, Kaluzi? What's up, Andrew? All right, so yeah, it's going to be a short stream today. We're just going to be going over this topic. We toss it in Discord, and we are good to go. We'll jump into it. So I'm going to, kind of just share my opinions about the article. I think it's a really good topic. Essentially, a lot of people are trying to rush becoming a developer way too quickly, and they're just hurting themselves doing so. So kind of want to see what he has to say. And it seems like he's pretty damn old school. I kind of glimpsed over it. I think he's been a programmer for a while. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I might disagree with some stuff, so we'll see. Okay. All right. Live for our event today. All right, there we go. All right, let's go ahead and jump in. All right, you guys ready? Ooh, damn. What a song to start this off, too. Whew. All right, I do think the music was a little bit loud, so I'm just going to turn it down slightly. There we go. That's pretty good. It's a funky song, for sure. All right, you guys ready? Let's jump into it. I'm ready. So, Teach Yourself Programming in 10 Years by Peter Norvig. Why is everyone in such a rush? Walk into any bookstore and you'll see how to teach yourself Java in 24 hours alongside endless variations, offering to teach C, SQL, Ruby, algorithms, and so on in a few days or hours. True. The Amazon Advanced Search title for title Teach Yourself Hours since 2000 and found since 2000 and found 512 such books. You mean since the year 2000? On the top 10, probably. On the top 10, 9 are programming books. The other is about bookkeeping. Similar results come from replacing Teach Yourself with Learn or Hours with Days. The conclusion is that either people are in a big rush to learn about programming or that programming is somehow fabulously easier to learn than anything else. Love it. Felician, give a nod to this. What the fuck am I reading? Give a nod to this trend in their book, How to Design Programs. I just can't read, apparently. When they say bad programming is easy, idiots can learn it in 21 days, even if they are dummies. Are you guys seeing books like this? The Abstruse Goose comic also had... is this where you're getting your takes of, becoming a developer in 3 months? Hearing messages So, okay, I actually have a question. When you get advice of, it's easy to become a programmer, you can become a programmer, within 3 months, within 6 months, no problem, right? And people are just taking way too long because they're just idiots or they're doing it wrong. Do you hear people giving this advice in like in a condescending way? Like, are they just saying like, oh yeah, they're idiots. Like, you just need a little bit of intelligence and like you could do this no problem. A lot of people are just idiots. Like, do you get that condescending of a message, or is it just like overhyped for increased engagement on YouTube videos and to be able to sell a book? Like, I'm wondering what the attitude, the mentality is, or just even the mindset that you can kind of pick up from this type of person. Because I don't often see this, right? I don't often see people being really condescending with it. In fact, I usually get and pick up this kind of attitude from people that have been in the industry for a very long time, that are kind of elitist. They're, quite frankly, they don't care about their soft skills. They built up enough of a skill level to, you know, do whatever they want to do. And I don't usually see this, because usually those type of people are the ones saying you need to give it longer. What's up, Jessa? Okay, how old is this article? Hold on. Do we have like a date? References. Okay, we'll keep going. That's all right. We'll just keep going. The conclusion is, let's see. Goose Comic also had their take. Let's analyze what a title like Teach Yourself C++ in 24 hours could mean. So this is what I want to get into. It's like, first of all, like what's intended with it, but also what is the impact of it. So Teach Yourself. In 24 hours, you won't have time to write several significant programs and learn from your successes and failures with them. You won't have time to work with an experienced programmer and understand what it is like to live a C++ environment. In short, you won't have time to learn much. So the book can only be talking about a superficial familiarity, not a deep understanding. That's true, but like, is it really like in... So you get these books titled in 24... Man, I feel like these are like really old books. Like in 24 hours. You know what I hate? Books that say like master JavaScript, master CSS, master C++. Like, what? I don't know. I don't see books like this that kind of sell it like you can learn within 24 hours and actually like get a good depth of knowledge. Maybe I need to, you know what? To be fair, I don't read programming books that much. I read a few back in the day, but these are... The problem is if people are seeking out books like this, right? If books like this are picking up traction, that means people are trying to learn as quickly as possible. But the problem isn't with someone trying to expedite their education. The problem is the mindset that isn't squashed when they try to expedite their education, right? When they dive deep into a book like this, where they start building a mindset of like, this can be a reality, right? And here's the problem. It's a reality, like no one's going to, learn C++ in 24 hours. But the reality is a lot of people get down on themselves, right? What's up, Flick? A lot of people get down on themselves, and if they don't learn it, and what the hell does that even mean? What is that metric of once you've learned it? They don't learn it within that 24 hours or whatever that book or course sold them on, then what happens? Their confidence goes down the shitter, like right away. And that's the frustrating part, is because like people dive into it thinking they're going to learn it, and they think it's not for me, and they don't even get time to enjoy it. Like, this is actually a really good point. Be able to write significant programs, which is going to challenge you to solve more complex problems, which is going to help you grow more, right? All right, sounds good, Jessa. And then, you don't really have a time. I mean, you're not going to, you probably want to bounce your ideas around with another developer, even get involved with the community and just kind of see what they're saying about the different types of stuff they're building, the language you're trying to learn, the framework you're trying to learn. So thankfully, I haven't seen this too much. I think that's a Plan the X for Dummies book that were popular back in the day. But but this is real though, right? That's what I was thinking. But these books still exist, don't they? Like, it just switch 24 hours for 24 days and it's still obnoxious, right? you still need to build something. You need to build significant projects to be able to reinforce it. And even within 24 days to be able to build significant projects to like have a good depth of knowledge with C++ when people professionally using it don't have anywhere close to a mastery with several years of experience. Like it just switch it to 24 days and it's still obnoxious. C++ in 24 hours, you might be able to learn some of the syntax of C++ if you already know another language, but you couldn't learn much about how to use the language. In short, if you were to say a basic programmer, you could learn and write programs in the style of BASIC using C++ syntax, but you couldn't learn what C++ is actually good and bad for. So what's the point? And that comes through implementation for sure. Alan Perilous once said, a language that doesn't affect the way you think about programming is not worth knowing. Good guy. One possible point is that you have to learn a tiny bit of C++ or more likely something like JavaScript or processing because you need to interface with an existing tool to accomplish a specific task. But then you're not learning how to program, you're learning how to accomplish that task. This is where people get caught up. Man, this is the JavaScript world in a nutshell. People get caught up with just piecing things together, gluing things together, and it gets something in front of them and on the page and working, and they don't know what the hell is happening under the hood. This is a big problem, a really, really, really big problem among new developers nowadays. In 24 hours, unfortunately, that is not enough. All right, so teach yourself programming in 10 years. Researchers have shown it takes about 10 years to develop expertise in any of a wide variety of areas, including chess, playing, music composition, telegraph operation, painting, piano playing, swimming, tennis, and research in neuropsychology and topology. The key is deliberative practice, not just doing it again and again, but challenging yourself with a task that is just beyond your current ability. I like that, right? Because I think a lot of people will repeat their code. When you go through a course, you go through a module, I think it helps to write out the code that you just learned. I do, but it's like the first step. You know what I mean? And then if you keep repeating that first step, which a lot of people do, which, I guess that first step is like learning, going through the course, but then like writing out your code on the side and even just like following along and writing it out, pausing it, write it out, think about what you're writing. That's like the first step. You're not really challenging yourself to think about it in any complex manner. You're not really challenging yourself to use it in a practical way, which is going to further reinforce what you're doing. So like, I think what he's kind of saying is like this repetition isn't enough. Repetition in itself isn't enough. I would argue like repetition with a system of learning that does get your learning to dive deeper, and you do it with a project and you do it with the next project. Like I think that kind of repetition can be healthy, but I think he's hinting towards just challenging yourself a little bit further each time, which I like. Analyzing your performance while and after doing it and correcting any mistakes. This is tricky. While doing it, this is tricky. I don't think as a brand new developer you're going to have this ability honed in at all. This is a really tricky thing. Don't expect yourself to be able to perfectly judge your growth in the beginning. It's even hard for more professional developers, and eventually you kind of just like, we get to the end point and then we look back and maybe the next thing that we have to learn, we just figure out, okay, this was actually a little bit trickier in this part. Let me try something different. Or maybe I spent too much time at the documentation, or, like maybe I just spent too much time. I didn't spend enough time on the documentation. I dove in too quickly and I was just trying to get it to work. And right, you can analyze that and it gets better as you go along. But as a professional developer, or as a brand new developer, like, this is tricky. This is why you compare your current like your most recent project with your previous projects. I think that's one of the best ways to do it. Then repeat and repeat again. There appear to be no real shortcuts. Even Mozart, who was a musical prodigy at age 4, took 13 more years before he began to produce world-class music. In another genre, the Beatles seem to burst onto the scene with a string of #1 hits and an appearance on the Ed Sullivan Show in 1964, but they had been playing small clubs in Liverpool, Hamburg, I'm hungry. Since 1957, and while they had mass appeal early on, their first great critical success, Sgt. Pepper's, was released in 1967. Okay, yeah, so essentially, all great people doing what they do. It took time, and that's actually another point. Like, this is something that should be emphasized. When you look at programmers, when you look at professional programmers, what they produce, what they talk about, you see them live code, it's like, I remember when I was a brand new programmer and I would just watch people that were professional programmers and they would just like code so fast and they were so fast in their editor. And I'm like, they are so smart. This is godlike. I'll never be this good of a programmer. It's very easy to put people on that pedestal. It's very easy to put on people on that pedestal. And one thing you have to realize is it can take it. Like you don't realize how long it took them to be able to get to that position, how many hours they sacrificed, how many nights they sacrificed to be able to do something like this, right? And the good news is a lot of these really good developers, it's not like they're more intelligent than you. They just put the hours in. They just put so many hours in, and that's what's going to happen to you as long as you continue pushing forward. So you got to be careful about putting people on a pedestal like that. If you feel like it's making you feel like you're never going to achieve that, you do. Programmers do with time. The problem is you hear all of these people giving up on their journey, saying it's like, oh yeah, companies are hiring when junior developers are getting hired every day. And they're just making excuses for how low their skill level is and how unmarketable they are, when it's really just about putting in a little bit of extra time. Not a little bit, a lot of time to be able to just continue pushing forward. I think a lot of the programmers, they don't... I think it's natural for you to... I gotta stop elaborating because I want to get through this article, but I think it's very natural for programmers to have like a arbitrary deadline. An arbitrary deadline where you feel like you can achieve it, and that's completely disrupted when you're getting no calls back, or you don't even get a project up because you thought you were going to have like, oh yeah, 3 projects up. That's what a lot of developers tell me to have on my portfolio, and you don't even have a portfolio up because you're struggling with, like, you're going to hit many of those milestones where you're not where you thought you would be. And the programmers that eventually do get into the industry are programmers that they just kept pushing forward. They kind of accepted that their deadlines suck. They financially prepared that it's going to be extended. That, you know, nowadays, maybe don't quit your full-time job, or at least pick up a part-time job to be able to pay the bills. But that's all it is. It's like you can get to where these brilliant programmers are by just investing the time. They're not smarter than you in terms of like they don't have a higher IQ than you necessarily. They just put the time into it, you know? Just looked at an old project. Not only was it terrible, but I looked back on how long it took me to do it too. Looking back definitely makes me feel proud where I've come and where I might be. Yo, that's awesome, Elijah. That's exactly how you do it. Just so welcome back. All right, let's keep going. So Malcolm Gladwell has popularized, can I not talk tonight? The idea, although he concentrates on 10,000 hours. Yep, I think we've all heard this. Not 10 years. Henry Cartier-Bresson had another metric. Your first 10,000 photographs are your worst. He didn't anticipate. Like, I'm going to be honest. These are just arbitrary numbers. I'd like to actually get the average of this. I'd be curious how, like, we've all heard like 10,000 hours to master something, right? I still think that number was pulled out of someone's butt, but that like, it's still instilling the mindset it's going to take a while, so I support it. Okay, so your first 10,000 photographs are your worst. Okay. Like, again, just pulling a number out of your butt. He didn't anticipate that with the digital cameras, some people can reach that mark in a week. True expertise may take a lifetime. Samuel Johnson said excellence in any department can be attained only by the labor of a lifetime. Of a lifetime? Define excellence if you're saying it's going to take a lifetime. It is not to be purchased at a lesser price. Sometimes I think when people... You get this from people that are in the industry for a very long time, where they're they're teaching the right mindset to have, but I think sometimes they're so disconnected from the modern world of programming that I don't think this is true. I don't think it's going to take a labor of a lifetime. And I don't think this actually motivates people at all to keep going that would have otherwise pushed forward with it. I don't know. Like, if you're demotivated that excellence is going to come from like you consistently pushing throughout your entire life, like, I don't know, you're probably not going to become a programmer anyways if like a sentence like this demotivates you and you quit. But it's still like, I feel like sentences like this, I think sometimes people just like to talk and just sound like they have wisdom. I don't know. There just seems to be a huge disconnect, and it's like, this is where I can see people really feeling like there's a gatekeeper of people that have been in the programming industry for a long time. I just think there's a disconnect in that message. Maybe it just like, it sounds weird to me. Okay. Life is short, of course. What am I reading? We're skipping all this. Of course, no single number can be the final answer. It doesn't seem reasonable to assume that all skills, programming, chess playing, checkers playing, and music playing could all require exactly the same amount of time to master, nor that all people will take exactly the same amount of time. As Professor Anders Ericsson puts it, in most domains, it's remarkable how much time even the most talented individuals need in order to reach the highest levels of performance, which is why I'm I am such a big advocate against people attributing luck, even like genetics for bodybuilding sometimes. Even just like they assume people's IQ, or they assume people's background, or I feel like you just like, so many people just see the result of someone. And if you built up the right mindset to be able to build up yourself and become successful in life and become fulfilled in life and really grow as a person in life, you kind of realize there's a long journey that you're not seeing. But if you are someone that chooses to be a victim of your circumstances, you choose to put everyone else on a pedestal, you choose to make excuses, and the environment, everything else is the reason why you aren't achieving something, you're going to be very intimidated, and you're not really gonna, that mindset of the journey that person probably had to go through doesn't even come up in your mind. It doesn't even pop up. You don't even think about it. It's something else. And I think that's a mindset you have to be very careful of, because I've seen a lot of people that choose to be victims of their circumstances for the rest of their lives. And it's sad. I've seen a lot of older people that still literally blame their boss, blame everyone else, but instead of like actually taking ownership over day by day, putting in the hours to be able to transition careers day by day, putting in the hours to be able to build up their relationship, whatever it is. I feel like that it's what this article is like really pushing for is just grow. I don't know. I think I'm reading too much into this. I think I am, but I feel like what I'm kind of just reminded of is it just like, no matter what you need to grow and change, it just takes way more time than people realize. And I think you just got to be careful of like putting your idols on a pedestal. Like, you could never achieve that, because you have to take ownership over the amount of time you put in, and that's what causes you to achieve that. Does that make sense? So the 10,000 hour number just gives you a sense what we're talking, years of 10 to 20 hours a week, which those who some people would argue are the most innately talented individuals still need to get to the highest level. Yep. So you want to be a programmer. All right, here we go. This gives you hope again. Dang, that's deep down. Okay, I'm glad it went somewhere practical. I have a tendency to sometimes take it into something like a different direction, or more depth into something where the article originally wasn't even talking about. So if it's helpful, that's what matters. And what's up, Miles? All right, so you want to be a programmer. Here's my recipe for programming success. Let's go. Get interested in programming and do some because it is fun. Make sure that it keeps being enough fun so that you will be willing to put in your 10 years or 10,000 hours. I'm going to read that again. Get interested in programming and do some because it is fun. Make sure that it keeps being enough fun so that you will be willing to put in your 10 years or 10,000 hours. Most people, no, I shouldn't say most, there is just a large chunk of people that get into programming and they don't allow themselves to be curious. They're way too motivated by the money increase they think they're going to get, and they usually don't end up getting to the finish line to get that money increase, right? It's crazy how many people feel like they can get through this journey and force their way through it and not really enjoy it. You have to be a robot. Like, your motivation is going to die throughout coding, but if you don't constantly explore that curiosity, you don't build projects you want to build, you don't explain, like, sometimes that even means not going the super linear path, and you're like, you pick up a library framework or even a different language, you take some extra time to learn it because you're really curious about it. Do that. I think not enough people do that because they don't give themselves enough runway to be able to do that. But that, I'm telling you, that is going to ignite a fire in you that many other successful programmers have, because they were curious. They allowed themselves to explore and build shit, even if it didn't make sense. And you just, like I said, my old boss, he built a mobile app that was it was a coaster. It was rated really low, but he's like, I want to build a mobile app, and I'm just kind of curious if people are going to download it, right? It's the dumbest thing ever, but he would go on and build different stuff with like a Raspberry Pi or like a script for his Xbox. Like, he just kept exploring in it. It was fun for him, right? It was learning that there is a problem, there is a challenge in front of you, and just figuring out how to overcome that challenge. That's what's fun. That's what gives you those aha moments. That's what ignites, that keeps that fire ignited. And I think that's a really good point. It's like, you have to be willing to keep it fun. It's not just about so this almost implies that it's you can't expect programming to be fun all of the time. You have to constantly reset and reignite that fire. And I actually think that's a really good point. At least that's how I'm reading this. Because, yeah, it just, like, sometimes you just have those off days. Sometimes you don't want to wake up and program. Sometimes you don't want to get home from work and program. And, maybe that means that you're trying to tackle it you're just trying to tackle it the wrong way. You're going through way too many courses. You're not building enough, or, you're told that you're supposed to learn JavaScript and that's going to be marketable and you hate JavaScript. And maybe you should branch into a different language, right? Like, I feel like this is something you have to continue to do. And just because it's not fun now doesn't mean it can't become fun. And maybe you're going down the wrong direction if you've spent several weeks and you don't even want to load up your editor and do anything. You know what I mean? Okay. The best kind of learning is learning by doing. To put it more technically, the maximum level of performance for individuals in a given domain is not attained automatically as a function or of extended experience. But the level of performance can be increased even by highly experienced individuals as a result of deliberate efforts to improve. Let me read that again. The maximum level of performance for individuals in a given domain is not attained automatically as a function of extended experience. So just doing something is... Okay, got it. I just read over that too quickly. But yeah, so just doing something doesn't necessarily mean you're really going to grow or improve that much, but deliberate efforts and planned efforts can. So being effective with your time. The most effective learning requires a well-defined task with an appropriate difficult level for that particular individual. And I think that's the thing. I think a lot of courses are easy. I don't think courses provide you with a proper challenge. You know what I mean? Congrats on the 40K, Don. I appreciate that, Isidro. I think a lot, like, you can't expect... I think a lot of people expect these courses to be the difficult part. They're not. It's building. It's implementing what you just learned. It's then when you get stuck not leaning on the course and going through the documentation to piece things together. Like, that's the more difficult thing. It's figuring out how everything works together. It's figuring out, like, okay, now things are getting messy. How can I organize this a little bit better? It's implementing, like, a little bit better conventions in a poorly maintained application. It's building, it's implementing stuff. It's not your coursework. Your coursework, yeah, I mean, it'll be challenging to an extent, but I would argue like it really isn't challenging enough to be able to give you that taste of like really those aha moments of solving a problem. Project work will do that. Informative feedback and opportunities for repetition and correction of errors. But yeah, informative feedback is a little bit tricky because a lot of people don't take that initiative to get that mentorship. The book Cognition and Practice, Mind, Mathematics, and Culture in Everyday Life is an interesting reference for this viewpoint. All right. Talk with other programmers. Read other programs. This is more important than any other book or training course. I don't think it's more important, but it's important. You can get involved in Discord communities at the very least. I would recommend in-person meetups, like actually talk to humans. Go to meetups with events, and usually they'll have little networking portions with those events. But yeah, like there are so many ways that you can get involved. But I think just talking with them. You don't have to, remember, you don't have to be an expert. It's just talking. A lot of people just like talking about themselves. I'm telling you, 95% of conversations, if you could just ask the right questions and get them to talk, like figure out what they're excited about and get them to talk about what they're excited about, that's huge. You're going to create a connection through that alone. Because a lot of people are selfish. They go up and they have a selfish conversation and it's all about me, and it's not an empathetic conversation about what they give a shit about, the other person gives a shit about. So that's one strategy to be able to talk to people if you're just nervous. But read other programs, and you can do that through open source software. If you want, put in 4 years at a college or more at a graduate school. It depends with software engineering. CS degree, fine. Graduate school, this will give you access to some jobs that require credentials, and it will give you a deeper understanding of the field. But if you don't enjoy school, you can, with some dedication, get similar experience on your own or on the job. True. In any case, book learning alone won't be enough. That's true. Computer science education cannot make anybody an expert programmer any more than studying brushes and pigment can make somebody an expert painter. Very, very true, which is why I recommend anyone going through a computer science degree build applications. Make sure you learn marketable technologies. One of the best programmers I have ever hired had only a high school degree. He's produced a lot of great software, has his own news group, and made enough stock options to buy his own nightclub. Okay. Interesting fellow. And I'll provide the link in the description, so you guys are welcome to check out any of these links. Learning to code really humbled me on just how complex ideas can be and how to use failure to your advantage, to the point where failure is more straightforward than success. It's a humbling experience. What's up, Henhouse? How you doing? What's up, Dewey? All right, so work on projects after other programmers. Understand a program written by somebody else. See what it takes to understand and fix it when the original programmers are not around. Think about how to design your programs to make it easier for those who will maintain them after you. This could give you an appreciation. Doing this could give you appreciation for this, for sure, and why that's important. But yeah, you could do this through open source software. I think that's valid. You might not get a lot of exposure to being able to fix other stuff people have worked on, but you could actually get a little bit of a taste of it if you don't want to dive into open source work, through group project work and pair programming with someone and adding to their feature. Learn at least a half dozen programming languages, including one language that emphasizes class abstractions like Java or C++, one that emphasizes function abstraction like Lisp or ML or Haskell. What? One that supports syntactic... Did I just read Haskell? One that supports syntactic abstraction like Lisp. One that supports declarative specifications like Prolong or C++ templates. And one that emphasizes parallelism like Clojure or Go. No. That is the worst advice out of this entire article. What? Okay. Here, it's excessive. It's really important for you to start thinking about what kind of problems you want to solve, what kind of companies that you want to work at and what those companies require and what specific position within that company, what it requires, the stack. You can be a good programmer by learning one language. You can. I think eventually being open to expanding to other languages, especially as a backend developer, I think you should be open to that. And you will learn different paradigms, different ways of doing things through different languages. But this is literally, I mean, like, if you are trying to spend 10 years learning to program, I suppose this might be true. I don't think you have to get that extreme, right? I'm all for shitting on the idea and squashing these unrealistic expectations of becoming a developer in 6 months and even a year for most people. I'm all for that. But learning multiple languages, like, you're going to be spending many years if you want to get any substance from learning these different languages. You can get what you need and still get a good foundation through one language, but spending more time with that language and then getting a job and getting on the job experience. This is more for, I would argue this advice probably isn't for most even backend developers, to be honest. I'm wondering how old this article is, but I don't think this advice is for like brand new developers anymore. I don't agree with it. Proficient in 2. I just don't think this is good advice for developers without professional experience. I think you're going to grow a lot more with professional experience and you can expand from there. I don't agree with this at all. Yeah, like, this is too hardcore with this. Remember that there is a computer in computer science. Know how long it takes your computer to execute an instruction, fetch a word from memory with and without a cache miss, read consecutive words. And like, you can, these are valid things, right? And I think backend developers, there probably is a benefit in going a little bit lower level because we get a lot of abstraction and we get a lot of garbage collection that does a lot of easy stuff for us. And as a backend developer, I think getting exposure to being able to like set up pointers and like just the idea of, because I think even a lot of JavaScript developers don't realize what they're instantiating in memory and how it's referenced in memory. And I like, even JavaScript, like a lot of JavaScript developers that are brand new don't know that, and they should. And they should know how easy abstractions make it for them to be able to interact with a computer. So I find value in spending more time to learn a little bit of a lower language, given that you do have that extra time to do so. I don't think you necessarily need to, but I'll at least give in to that. But even looking at like optimizations with network requests, and you can even time your executions of certain functions and just like see the change in efficiency and be able to do that, right? Like, what happens if you're given the task of like, this is a very crucial part, we're going to be analyzing a lot of data and we want to make this as efficient as possible, right? And you're going to sacrifice some things to be able to do that. And sometimes it's readability, but like, just being able to compare your previous function and the execution time with your next optimized function, it's huge. I think like understanding that you can make things more efficient in that sense and why that actually happens. Because sometimes you're eating up CPU, sometimes you're eating up memory. Which are you using up? I think that is helpful. And I've even seen coding boot camps, they'll kind of brush over this a little bit. And that's where, coding boot camps do lack this knowledge, to be fair. Get involved in a language standardization effort. It could be the ANSI C++ committee, or it could be deciding if your local coding style will have 2 or 4 space indentation. This is the dumbest fucking argument ever. I don't think people actually argue about this unironically anymore. Like, do they? This is the dumbest conversation. Like, don't have this conversation with me. Like, don't ask me this question. Don't ask me this question. 2 or 4 space. Who's this advice for? I think it's for new programmers. But it's just a dumb conversation to have. Either way, you learn about what other people like in a language, how deeply they feel, and perhaps even a little bit of why they feel so. I think more people need to explain why they feel a certain way rather than express what they feel. I think a lot of programmers just dunk on each other and shit on like different languages and stuff like that. I don't think it helps new programmers out. I don't think it helps anyone out. That's like, you see that a lot on Twitter. I find that to be the most worthless conversation. I think more people need to explain why they feel a certain way rather than tell people how they're supposed to feel and that they feel strongly about this way. Who gives a fuck how you feel and how strongly you feel? Like, explain why. Give your experience, you know? Have the good sense to get off the language standardization effort as quickly as possible. Get off the language standardization effort as quickly as possible. What do you mean? I actually don't know what that means. With all that in mind, it's questionable how far you can get just by book learning. And that's seems to be really emphasizing that. Before my first child was born, I read all the how-to books and still felt like a clueless novice. 30 months later, when my second child was due, did I go back to the books for a refresher? No. Instead, I relied on my personal experience, which turned out to be far more useful and reassuring to me than thousands of pages written by... Stop going back to books. I'm telling you, stop going back to... why not 3 or 5 spaces? You know what? If you want to get in the conversation of tabs versus spaces or some BS or like how many spaces, just introduce a different variable into it. Like 5 spaces. And you're a trash developer if you don't do 5 spaces. And like double down on it. That's the only time you should ever get involved in that conversation. But seriously, stop going back into your courses. Stop going back into your books. It doesn't help you like you think it does. And a lot of people, here's a big thing. This might ring true for a lot of people. A lot of people will go through a course and take a break, like a month break or something like that, right? You're still new. A lot of that information, it's still whirling around in your brain. You take a month break, it feels like you need to go back from scratch. But what you're going to find is that it's going to be easier to learn that information, pick it up, recall it more quickly when you try to apply it, and then just look up little pieces of it, look up documentation. You're going to find that it comes to you a little bit easier than it did before you even learned it. But it's not efficient to go back through the entire foundational course to learn all this crap again. And a lot of people think that they need to do that. Stop doing that. Even if you take a month break, even if you take 2 months of a break, read documentation, Google stuff, practice like actually searching for the very specific answer. And usually when you're searching for that answer, it's because it's solving your immediate problem and you're applying it to your immediate problem, to your immediate implementation. It's going to reinforce it more. You're wasting so much time going back into that old course, so much time going back into 5 1/4 spaces. Thank you, Henhouse. Yes. You're just wasting time. You're not being efficient with your time whatsoever. And you know what's going to happen? When you go back to that course, there's a reason why you quit that course. A lot of people will blame it on kind of external circumstances, blah, blah, blah. And that could be true, but a lot of times, like, they were getting demotivated. A lot of times they were just getting frustrated with, like, they had too much of imposter syndrome to even try to build a project, or they went to go build a project. I can't think of anything. Or like, I don't know how to build this, right? They don't even like put that effort in. They just kind of build up anxiety in themselves. And I find that a lot of people, they were just going down a bad route anyways when you quit after a bunch of coursework. That's why you got to build early. Build early. You're going to get those aha moments. You're going to feel good. You're going to feel like you're making progress. And you're reinforcing things. It's because you are. But then you're going to, like, if you take a break, then you go back to another course, it's not going to ignite that fire under your butt. Like, even if it's the most gamified course ever, like, you're going to lose your motivation. It's so fucking boring to go through course after course after course after course. You want to use your knowledge. That's the whole point of learning programming, is to use that knowledge, not to just recite it over and over and over and over, which it never gets reinforced that way anyways. So, yeah. Fred Brooks, in his essay No Silver Bullet, identified a 3-part plan for finding great software designers. Systematically identify top designers as early as possible, assign a career mentor to be responsible for the development of the prospect, and carefully keep a career file, provide opportunities for growing designers to interact and stimulate each... What? Did you... What? Come on! Like... Alright. This assumes that some... I'm too immature to read these articles. I'm sorry, I'm a child. This assumes that some people already have the qualities necessary for being a great designer. The job is to properly coax them along. Alan Perilous put it more succinctly: everyone can be taught to sculpt. Michelangelo would have had to be taught how not to. So it is with great... What did I just read? Michelangelo would have had to be taught how not to? Okay. So is it with... So it is with great programmers, perilous... Why is this so difficult to read this article? I don't know if it's a font or what. So it is with great programmers. Perilous is saying that the greats have some internal quality that transcends their training, but where does the quality come from? Is it innate, or do they develop it through diligence? As Gusto puts it, anyone can cook, but only the fearless can be great. I like that saying. I think of it more as willingness to devote a large portion of one's life to deliberative practice. I think the idea, like if you're trying to instill the idea of a lifetime of deliberate practice for constant growth, that's fine, because I think sometimes people get into this mindset of like, oh, I'm going to learn enough, then I'm going to be able to do something, or I'm going to accomplish something. Like, I think it's more of instilling like a lifelong journey of growing. And so if that's what this author is trying to instill, then I'm all for it. But maybe fearless is a way to summarize that. Or as Gusto critic Anton Ego says, not everyone can become a great artist, but a great artist can come from anywhere. That's actually a really powerful saying. I like that. So go ahead and buy that Java, Ruby, JavaScript, PHP book. You'll probably get some use out of it, but you won't change your life or your real overall expertise as a programmer in 24 hours or 21 days. How about working hard to continually improve over 24 months? Well, now you're starting to get somewhere. That's based. I like it. All right, what do you guys think of the article? Do you agree, disagree? I found that I agreed with like almost everything here. You know, I probably wouldn't be surprised if I chased people away that are like, oh, I gotta get a job in 6 months. Like, I guarantee you we had people leaving throughout the live stream of just like, they don't want to hear it. A lot of people, when they're challenged with this idea, they don't want to hear it, and they kind of turn their head and they just look up videos, or they look up or follow people on Twitter that will tell them, oh yeah, just keep going. 3 months, you got it, no problem. And I think a lot of people just seek out what they want to believe. The last line was fair. I like it. I'm a big fan of like challenging people to give themselves a 2-year journey. Almost everyone can make a 2-year journey of learning how to code and learning how to program and becoming a software engineer and getting that first position work. Especially if you're doing it full time, you can make that work. But imagine how many people, and feel free, like if you're one of those people and you're just like, this kind of surprised you, imagine how many people are like, that's ridiculous. It would never take me that amount of time. I wonder how many of those people are trying to rush through their courses and kind of just using them as achievement points, and they don't really have any substantial projects to showcase or reinforce their learning even. This has most certainly been my experience. Iteratively is the only way to build real knowledge. With purpose. Yeah, that is true. And what this article actually mentioned, it's like with purpose. I started really becoming a better engineer when I stopped taking notes. You learn by doing, like continually learning to ride a bike that gets more complex. Yep. Yeah, way too many people are taking notes in boot camps. Or they're taking like too specific of notes. I think, because you can always look this stuff up, but paying attention, even in your boot camp, paying attention to the instructor and then practicing afterwards is ideal. Make sure, because a lot of people split their attention and they think it's actually helping them to take notes while they're trying to learn, and they're splitting their attention. It doesn't help them usually. I see a love of learning aspect, occasionally going back to a book, not course on learning something, sometimes pick up on something I missed the first time around or understanding something. If you enjoy doing that, go for it with a love of learning. I can see that, right? But if we're talking about actually like reinforcing a lot of the concepts and growing as a developer efficiently, I'd argue that's not the point. But I see what you're making with your point. Like you just kind of like going back and reading. But understand that's not one of the most efficient paths. As long as you are fine with going back in, you want to spend some extra time, that's fine. Just be careful, and I'm not specifically saying to you, Mahan, but anyone, just be careful about getting into that trap. Like if you took a break and you kind of started getting demotivated, just be honest with yourself. Like, are you going back in and you quit before because you were getting demotivated? Then maybe repeating history, maybe repeating this path isn't what you should be doing because you're just going to quit again. I really would like to find a mentor and get out of my shell. I definitely haven't interacted with the developer community enough. A lot of people haven't, Elijah. A lot of people should, too. In that quote, I'm wondering if it would still be the same without the word great and put developer in there. Where? Without great? Oh, you talking about this? Not everyone can become a great artist, but a great artist can come from anywhere. Why? So the way I see this, I'll answer your second question, and I think that'll kind of respond to both. Don, do you think anyone can become a developer? Maybe not a great one, but just become one? Yeah. Anyone can become a great developer is what I'm saying. Unless you like have some sort of like huge mental blocker, you have a very low IQ, which I would argue like it just depends on what's affected in your brain. But anyone can become a great developer. Not just anyone can become a developer, anyone can become a great developer. But what I think they're saying is, and I think the author or whoever this Gusto critic, Anton Ego. Ego. Hey. I think what this person is implying is that not everyone can become a great artist, meaning not everyone is going to build up the mindset and the habits to become a great artist. But a great artist can come from anywhere actually means everyone can become a great artist, given that they build up the right mindset, right? It doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is, etc. But I that's how I read it when I read it out loud, is there's just a caveat that a lot of the people that aren't going to become a great artist are people that are kind of seeking things that aren't really building up the mindset and turning them into the person to be able to become a great artist. They're capable of it. I don't think he's saying they're not capable of it, but maybe I'm misreading that. I think that's what Anton means. Similar to people who want results quickly in the gym. You aren't going to go pack on 30 pounds of muscle in 6 months. Yep, 100%. They don't get a dev job in 8 months and say the market is rigged. Yep, exactly, plumbing. All right, cool. I think we're at the end of this. This is going to be a short live stream. Yeah, this is less than an hour. I thought this is Octavio. Welcome. I found this, I don't know, a lot of quotes, a lot of references. It made it a little bit of a slower read. And I think overall, I feel like this person is probably a little bit more old school. I don't know who this author is, Peter Norvig. I'm actually just going to look him up right now. Bit older. Stanford Institute for blah, 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 blah. I don't know. I'm not going to butcher his background or anything like that. But anyways, I feel like this, there's a lot of old school programmers, old school developers that have a bit of a mindset where I think there's an extreme in saying you need to pick up 6 programming languages. I don't think that is necessarily true. I think you should be open to picking up different languages and understand that it can bring you a different perspective and make you a better developer. But especially for brand new developers, you're not going to be doing that. But like everything else of kind of squashing this fast track to be like learning C++ or trying to become a developer, or like spending way too much time in the tutorials and not building, not solving problems, not talking with other developers, not seeing professional code, right? I think like the whole thing is like get yourself out of the courses, get yourself out of the books, and build, solve problems, and have fun with it, and realize that fire is going to die, so you have to reignite it constantly, and that's okay. And it'll be easier to reignite it too once you've kind of developed a habit for curiosity here. And the further you get into programming, the more you build, the more aha moments you have, the more you're going to get yourself excited and keep that fire going for longer too. That's what I found to be true. But yeah, I feel like it was a pretty good take overall. So we'll do more of these if you guys want to see them. Just let me know. I'll actually leave this up and live if people want to check it out. But if you guys have, if you guys do have any questions, anything like that, like web dev career related questions, we're going to be doing a live Q&A tomorrow, Thursday, 5 p.m. Central Time. So feel free to swing by then. But before I forget, everyone, thank you so much that does support me on Patreon, YouTube membership, or getting people bumping into like the 1 year and 6 month supporters. Like everyone's just condensing over there. So I know I have a lot of people that are supporting for a very long time. I appreciate that. But yeah, thank you. Have a good rest of your day. Good luck in all of your projects and happy coding. Take care.